What happens when the universe itself delivers a riddle that breaks the very rules of science? Mars drifts beneath its pale skies, a silent witness to mysteries it cannot voice. Its red deserts glow under the fading light of a distant sun, while, above, a traveler approaches from the dark between the stars. This is no ordinary visitor. It comes from beyond the cradle of our solar system, carrying with it the silence of interstellar night. Through the lenses of telescopes, astronomers strain to capture its story. Yet the story resists. Its brightness flickers in ways that refuse prediction. Its trajectory bends as though nudged by unseen hands. Equations that have guided celestial mechanics for centuries falter, their precision eroded by something that should not be possible. The data is not chaotic, but it is unsettling, whispering of a logic hidden beyond the reach of current science. In observatories from Mauna Kea to Haleakala, signals arrive like fragments of an unsolved code. Scientists recalibrate, recalculate, and recast their models, yet the numbers refuse to settle. Each new observation deepens the puzzle. Is this a rock shaped by ancient collisions or something forged under conditions unknown? The stage is set not only for discovery, but for confrontation. Awe intertwines with dread, wonder with unease. Humanity finds itself staring into the abyss, asking a question both scientific and philosophical. What if the universe has delivered not a discovery, but a contradiction? What if, for the first time, science itself stands before something it cannot explain? In the vast history of astronomy, most celestial visitors have been predictable. Comets, asteroids, and meteors have long been part of Earth's unfolding skyward story. Yet in the year 2017, the narrative was rewritten. Astronomers caught sight of something entirely new. An object named Oumuamua, the first confirmed interstellar traveler to pass through the solar system. It was small, elongated, and fast. Its shape, inferred from the flickering of its reflected light, defied expectations. Some called it a shard of rock, others speculated it was a fragment of a broken planet, and a few wondered aloud if it might be something even stranger. What it truly was remains unsolved, a mystery that still hangs over astronomy like an unfinished sentence. Just 2 years later, in 2019, another messenger arrived, 2I Borisov. Unlike Oumuamua, it behaved more like a comet, trailing gas and dust in a manner consistent with icy bodies. It was a reminder that the galaxy is not silent. Objects wander between the stars, and sometimes they cross into the light of our sun. By then, astronomers had learned to prepare their instruments, expecting that more such visitors would come. They were right. In 2020, the Atlas telescopes in Hawaii detected a new anomaly. At first, it was faint, almost unremarkable against the background of stars. Yet as its path was tracked, its uniqueness became undeniable. The telescopes, part of the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, were designed to guard Earth, scanning the sky for threats. But instead of an object on a collision course with our planet, they had uncovered a Voyager with a trajectory aimed not at Earth, but toward Mars. This was 3I Atlas, the third confirmed interstellar object ever detected. Almost immediately, it distinguished itself from all others. The first sign of its strangeness lay in its brightness. The light curve, the pattern of how sunlight reflected off its surface, was inconsistent. Objects tumbling through space normally display rhythmic variations, like a lighthouse beam sweeping across the sea. But 3I Atlas pulsed irregularly. At times it brightened beyond expectation, as though reflecting more light than its size should allow. At other times it dimmed abruptly, as though shadows were being cast by structures not accounted for in any model. Then came the trajectory. Most interstellar objects follow hyperbolic paths, slingshotting around the sun and disappearing back into the void. 3I Atlas did follow a hyperbolic course but with anomalies. Tiny deviations in its motion appeared that could not be explained by gravity alone. Planetary scientists began to wonder if non-gravitational forces were at play, much like the mysterious acceleration once observed with Oumuamua. But where Oumuamua's effect could be attributed to outgassing, jets of sublimating ice pushing it along, 3I Atlas showed no obvious signs of cometary activity. No visible tail, no surrounding cloud of debris, yet still, its path wavered. From the first weeks of observation, scientists were confronted with an unsettling realization. 3I Atlas was different, even among the different. It seemed to carry the legacy of its predecessors but also to stretch the mystery further. In planetary science conferences, discussions grew heated. Was this an icy fragment from a shattered exoplanet? Was it a piece of an interstellar comet stripped bare by cosmic radiation? Or was it something that science had no existing category for? At the University of Hawaii, researchers who first traced its path noted how quickly it became the subject of worldwide attention. From NASA to the European Southern Observatory, teams scrambled to capture more data. Each night of observation added new complications. The brightness refused to settle into a predictable rhythm. The path toward Mars bent more than gravitational models suggested it should. And yet the object endured, silent, enigmatic, offering no answers of its own. Some scientists offered cautious speculation. Could it be hollow? Its mass distribution so unusual that it wobbled like no natural fragment should? Could radiation pressure from the sun, the same subtle force that pushes the sails of spacecraft, be nudging it along more strongly than anticipated? Others pointed out that its motion seemed to echo mysteries already raised by Oumuamua. Were these interstellar travelers revealing a class of objects unlike anything humanity had cataloged before? In cinematic terms, the sky can be thought of as a ledger. Each planet, each comet, each asteroid, recorded by position and velocity, its numbers balancing the equations of celestial mechanics. For centuries, those numbers have always added up. But with 3I Atlas, the ledger no longer balanced. Something was missing. Something was hidden. It was as though a new symbol had been written across the page. A number that defied addition, subtraction, and reason. The deeper scientists looked, the more their confidence shifted into curiosity tinged with unease. This was not simply another object from afar. It was a messenger bearing contradictions. A fragment of another star system, yes, but also a question mark written into the orbit of Mars. It carried the silence of the interstellar medium, the gulf between suns, and yet it spoke through deviations in its path, through light curves that felt like coded signals. As it moved closer to the inner solar system, one fact became clear. This was no ordinary chapter in planetary science. This was the arrival of a riddle, the third act in a story that began with Oumuamua and Borisov. Except this time, the question was sharper. The data was more confounding. And the consequences of misunderstanding, it felt far greater. Mars waited beneath its thin atmosphere, unaware of what approached. Humanity, however, watched with increasing tension. Telescopes tracked. Equations bent. Models broke. And in the midst of it all, 3I Atlas continued forward, indifferent to the awe, the dread, and the wonder it inspired. The universe is a cathedral of order. For centuries, scientists have mapped its rhythms through the language of mathematics. From Newton's laws of motion to Einstein's relativity, the cosmos has been written in equations that predict the dance of worlds with astonishing precision. Yet every so often, the universe whispers back with something that does not fit, a stray note that threatens to unravel the symphony. With 3I Atlas, those whispers grew into a silence heavy with contradiction. From the moment telescopes locked onto the object, the data it returned refused to conform. Spectral readings, the fingerprints of its material composition, revealed signatures that shifted from one observation to the next. At times, the object reflected the telltale markers of carbon-rich compounds, the kind expected from comets born in the cold outskirts of a star system. On other nights, instruments detected metallic glints more consistent with asteroids forged in the inner furnaces of planetary systems. A single body could not be both. The contradictions left astronomers staring at lines of data that seemed to rewrite themselves each time the object turned. Even more troubling was its motion. Under Newton's mechanics, any object crossing the solar system should trace a path dictated by gravity, its trajectory calculable with exquisite precision. Einstein refined those predictions, accounting for the subtle bending of space and time itself. Between these two pillars, the movement of stars, planets, and comets has been reliably mapped for generations. But 3I Atlas shifted outside the boundaries of those rules. Its acceleration was erratic, as though pushed by an invisible hand. At times, it seemed to gain momentum in ways gravity could not provide. At others, it slowed, as if resisting a pull that should have drawn it further. For Oumuamua, some of these anomalies could be explained by outgassing, the release of trapped volatiles producing tiny jets that nudged its trajectory. Yet for 3I Atlas, no such evidence was found. No tail of vapor, no halo of dust, no thermal emissions consistent with sublimation. Still, the object moved as though propelled by forces unseen. Its mass, estimated by its gravitational interactions, did not align with the acceleration recorded by instruments. The numbers contradicted one another, forcing astronomers into a paradox. If the mass was correct, the motion was impossible. If the motion was real, then the mass must be something other than what was observed. The most confounding puzzle came with its reflections. As solar radiation struck the surface of 3I Atlas, sensors picked up patterns of energy scattering back into space that defied conventional physics. Instead of the predictable absorption and reflection curves seen in known materials, the object returned bursts of radiation at unusual wavelengths, flashes of energy as though part of it was tuned to respond to light itself. To some, these were nothing more than irregularities in measurement. To others, they were glimpses of properties no natural rock or ice should possess. The community divided. Some argued that it was still a comet, stripped bare and behaving in ways not yet fully understood. Others suggested exotic compositions, perhaps materials forged in the cores of stars unlike our sun. A handful raised questions that edged toward the unspoken. Could it be more than geological chance? Could the laws being broken by 3I Atlas be laws only partially known? This object did not merely bend equations. It defied them outright. Under Einstein, energy and mass are bound by an intimate relationship, each shaping the fabric of space-time. Under Newton, force and acceleration exist in a straightforward balance. Yet 3I Atlas appeared to drift outside these frameworks, as though operating according to a hidden principle beyond either theory. If a fragment of stone could do this, then perhaps the cosmos itself carried a physics not yet written into human understanding. Some theorists turn to the frontier of speculation. Could it be interacting with the quantum vacuum, harvesting momentum from fluctuations invisible to the human eye? Could it be responding to forces of dark matter, its trajectory bending under influences that pervade the galaxy but remain unmeasured? Others wondered if it might reveal new dimensions of physics altogether. Remnants of cosmic laws only glimpsed in the earliest moments after the Big Bang. And yet, for every radical idea, the silence of the object remained absolute. No signal, no pulse, no answer to the questions hurled at it by the finest instruments of Earth. It traveled as though indifferent to the confusion it left behind, carving its path toward Mars in defiance of centuries of certainty. The philosophical weight of such anomalies was not lost on the observers. If science is a map of the known, then 3I Atlas represented a place where the map tore. It was a rift, a reminder that knowledge is provisional, fragile against the vastness of the unknown. Perhaps the universe was not a finished book, but a manuscript still being written, with pages that can surprise even the most patient reader. There is a haunting tension in this idea. If Three-Eye Atlas is natural, then it is evidence of processes not yet imagined, forces at work in distant star systems that forge matter in ways alien to Earth's experience. If it is not natural, then it is something else, an artifact, a mechanism, a vessel carrying with it the possibility that intelligence beyond humanity has inscribed itself into the ledger of the solar system. And so the question lingers in the stillness of the night sky. Does the universe hide laws unseen, waiting to be uncovered in the flicker of light across an alien object? Or is this only the shadow of something greater, a truth that refuses to step fully into the light? Telescopes continue to track, data continues to stream, and equations continue to bend under the weight of contradiction. Yet through it all, Three-Eye Atlas moves on, indifferent, unyielding, carrying with it data that should not exist. A silent messenger, whispering of worlds that lie not just beyond the stars, but beyond the reach of the science that seeks to explain them. Every orbit is a clock, every movement of a celestial body, a hand sweeping across the face of time. And with Three-Eye Atlas, that clock began to tick louder with each passing night. The object was no longer a distant curiosity traced in the outer darkness. It was now a traveler on a precise trajectory, one that would carry it past the red sands of Mars. The solar system, usually a place of calm predictability, had acquired the pulse of a countdown. From observatories across Earth, humanity's instruments aligned. The Hubble Space Telescope, orbiting high above the atmospheric veil, fixed its gaze. The James Webb Space Telescope, tuned to wavelengths invisible to the human eye, joined the vigil. Ground-based giants, like the Very Large Telescope in Chile and Keck atop Mauna Kea, trained their adaptive optics on the faint glimmer. Radio telescopes from arrays in New Mexico to dishes spread across Europe added their ears to the chorus. The object became one of the most studied travelers in the history of astronomy. And yet, the more the cosmos was interrogated, the more it seemed to answer with silence and contradiction. Data poured in at unprecedented scales. Each spectral analysis, each measurement of velocity, was meant to refine the picture. But instead of clarity, the findings wove a tapestry of paradox. Its brightness surged in ways that defied rotational models. Its heat signature flickered at levels that could not be reconciled with its apparent size. Radio scans returned faint echoes that suggested structure, then fell back into noise as if mocking the very attempt to listen. The deeper the gaze, the less the object revealed. Mars, meanwhile, turned beneath its thin skies, unaware of the human anticipation projected upon it. From a distance, the planet was silent, a crimson witness orbiting its ancient path. Its deserts stretched outward, marked by canyons deeper than Earth's seas and volcanoes that once spat fire into a younger atmosphere. Now it waited, still and unmoved, while an interstellar messenger cut a line toward its orbit. For planetary scientists, the implications grew heavier with each recalculation. What would it mean for an object born between stars to sweep so close to another world? Could its presence be felt in the geology of Mars? In the whisper-thin air of its atmosphere? Might dust storms stir differently in response to its passage? Could the gravity of the planet, subtle but real, leave the faintest mark upon its orbit, inscribing Mars into the mystery of its path? The questions ran deeper still. If Three-Eye Atlas carried materials unknown to the solar system, could fragments brush the Martian skies and fall upon its surface? Would future rovers find shards buried in red soil, clues left behind not by Martian geology but by a traveler from another star? The thought was both exhilarating and unsettling. Mars had always been a canvas for human imagination, but now it risked becoming a page in a cosmic dialogue written with alien ink. As the days shortened between observation and encounter, the object's enigma only deepened. The precise tracking of its position revealed accelerations inconsistent with known mechanics. Even accounting for gravitational assists and radiation pressure, the numbers bent out of line. To some, it suggested a natural process still misunderstood. To others, it whispered of propulsion not born of random physics, but of intention. No one could prove such claims, yet no one could dismiss the possibility entirely. The countdown continued, marked not in hours or minutes, but in data streams and orbital plots. Graphs filled with points that refused to converge. Equations stretched into margins, chasing answers that remained just out of reach. Astronomers spoke in the language of uncertainty, their models breaking apart as fast as they were built. It was as though the object was not merely traveling through space, but also pulling science itself into orbit around its mystery. In the silent void, 3I Atlas advanced. Its motion was steady, unhurried, yet charged with inevitability. Each second brought it closer to the Martian frontier. The red world, ancient and scarred, seemed almost to lean into the encounter, as though its canyons and plains had been waiting for a moment like this. For billions of years, Mars had been shaped by impacts, by winds, by the retreat of rivers long gone. Now it was about to be shaped by something stranger, an interstellar visitor carrying contradictions within its very existence. Philosophers of science began to reflect on the symbolism of the encounter. Mars, so often the stage of human curiosity, would soon share its skies with a traveler whose origins lay beyond the sun's dominion. It was a reminder that planets are not alone, that even the silent deserts of a neighbor world can become witnesses to mysteries arriving from the deep night of interstellar space. And yet, beneath the poetry lay a tremor of unease. If an object can violate the trusted laws of motion, what else might it reveal when it brushes the gravity of a planet? Would its trajectory warp further, bending in ways no model could forecast? Would its spectral reflections shift again, suggesting materials never catalogued by earthly science? Would Mars itself, the quiet sentinel, hold scars of its passing, geological records that future explorers might stumble upon like cryptic signatures of a cosmic visitation? The suspense was not born of spectacle, but of silence. The object did not blaze with fire nor thunder with force. It drifted, indifferent and quiet, carrying contradictions like hidden cargo. And all the while, the countdown pressed forward, an unseen clock ticking in the void. The march toward Mars became not just a journey of an object, but of human understanding. Each measurement carried with it the weight of expectation. Each anomaly pressed harder against the boundaries of what was thought to be known. It was as though the universe had staged a riddle, with Mars set as the backdrop, and 3I Atlas the pen writing questions across the face of the sky. When the final approach began, the world of science held its breath. Instruments continued to stream contradictions. Equations refused to hold. And yet the object moved on, silent, unbending, carrying with it the possibility of rewriting more than models, but the very relationship between humanity and the universe it seeks to comprehend. Mars waited beneath its pale skies, still and patient. The deserts turned. The canyons stretched in shadow, and in the silence, the red planet prepared to bear witness to the passage of a mystery born in another star's cradle, carrying with it the data, the contradictions, and the unyielding weight of the unknown. The data was in. It had been studied, cross-checked, and recalibrated through every lens of modern science. Yet the contradictions refused to vanish. The story of 3I Atlas had become more than observation. It had become a riddle. And with riddles come theories, speculations, and the unsettling silence of uncertainty. The first voices to speak reached for the familiar. Perhaps, they argued, 3I Atlas was only a comet. An exotic one, yes, but still born from the same processes that have shaped icy wanderers for billions of years. Maybe it was outgassing, the silent escape of frozen volatiles beneath its surface. Jets invisible to the eye could explain its erratic accelerations. Yet even here the models struggled. There was no tail, no coma of dust glowing in solar light. Its surface remained dry, barren, and unyielding to telescopic scrutiny. Outgassing without visible emission was not impossible, but it pressed the boundaries of plausibility. Others looked deeper, into the histories of star formation itself. They proposed that 3I Atlas might be a fragment of planetesimal birth, a shard from the ancient construction of worlds in some alien star system. Such a fragment, torn free and cast adrift, could carry properties never seen in the solar system. Its spectral anomalies might speak of chemistries forged under different suns, pressures, and elemental balances. Perhaps the contradictions in mass, motion, and light were not errors, but windows into the diversity of worlds scattered across the Milky Way. If so, 3I Atlas was not just a traveler. It was a message in matter, telling of planetary processes foreign to human understanding. But not all were satisfied with natural explanations. Some began to ask the question that had haunted astronomy since the first interstellar visitor, Oumuamua. Could it be artificial? Could its strange accelerations, its impossible readings be signs of a craft, a vessel, or a relic designed by intelligence? In academic halls, such suggestions drew discomfort, even ridicule. Science moves carefully, and to leap toward intention without evidence is to risk dissolving into fantasy. Yet the whispers persisted, echoing the same unease that Oumuamua had sparked years before. The late Stephen Hawking had warned of alien contact. He spoke of caution, reminding humanity that encounters with more advanced civilizations on Earth's own history rarely ended well for the less advanced. A message or a machine drifting across the stars might not be benign. Carl Sagan, in contrast, had reflected on the Great Silence. He spoke of how the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. For him, the cosmos was filled with possibilities, some wondrous, some perilous, all demanding humility. In the contradictions of 3I Atlas, both warnings and hopes seemed to converge. Scientists found themselves caught in a tension not only of data, but of philosophy. Caution urged restraint. Do not leap to conclusions. Do not repeat the mistakes of speculation. Yet curiosity whispered louder. What if this was the first true message from beyond? What if silence in the data was not emptiness, but encryption? What if the object was not indifferent, but deliberate? The debates grew sharper as new readings arrived. Teams pointed to the irregular light curves, suggesting possible geometric structure. Others dismissed it as noise, artifacts of observation. Some claimed the energy reflections hinted at engineered surfaces, while others countered with theories of crystalline ice or exotic mineral lattices. There was no consensus, only an expanding field of possibility. The emotional weight of the debate was profound. For every cautious scientist, there was one who admitted quietly that disbelief itself had begun to crack. The human mind, so trained to find patterns, could not help but search for intention. The silence of the object was louder than speech. Its contradictions felt less like accidents and more like riddles posed across the gulf of space. Philosophically, humanity was not prepared. Science thrives on boundaries, but here the boundaries had dissolved. Was 3I Atlas a discovery, a natural fragment of the galaxy's creative chaos? Or was it a warning, a reminder that intelligence beyond Earth might write in languages of matter and motion rather than words? The inability to decide was itself the shock. Theories multiplied, but certainty retreated further with each observation. The cinematic tension grew sharper with every passing orbit. On one side, the image of a comet, exotic but natural, whispering of alien worlds through its silent path. On the other, the haunting possibility that it was more than matter, that it was intention, design, or relic. Between them lay the scientists, caught in the fragile balance between skepticism and wonder. As 3I Atlas marched closer to Mars, humanity faced not just a scientific puzzle, but a philosophical mirror. The object reflected the limits of knowledge and the vulnerability of certainty. It was both the promise of discovery and the shadow of a warning. And in that silence, in that inability to decide, the human story revealed its most fragile truth, that sometimes the universe does not give answers, only questions. The story of 3I Atlas is not only about the object itself. It is also about the instruments humanity lifts toward the heavens in an effort to comprehend it. Each telescope, each sensor is more than machinery. It is a translation of human longing into glass and steel, a device that reaches across the void not only to measure light, but to measure our place within it. The first to catch its trail were the Atlas telescopes, high on the Hawaiian slopes of Haleakala and Mauna Loa. They were built for vigilance, for the quiet duty of scanning the skies for threats that might cross Earth's path. Their wide fields of vision act like guardians, sweeping the night with mechanical patience. When 3I Atlas first appeared in their data streams, it was a faint signature against a crowded sky, nothing more than a ripple in the background of stars. Yet from that ripple began a cascade of attention that would gather the greatest tools of astronomy into a single, unified gaze. Pan-STARRS followed, its powerful survey instruments designed to map the sky with deep sensitivity. Where Atlas found faint movement, Pan-STARRS dissected the trajectory, refining its arc across the solar system. Its images revealed more contradictions, more questions, fueling a chain reaction of curiosity. Soon, the object was no longer the subject of chance discovery. It had become a deliberate target, one that demanded the eyes of the most powerful telescopes humanity had ever built. Hubble was turned toward it, its instruments capturing visible light unblurred by Earth's atmosphere. Yet even Hubble, with its decades of legacy unraveling the mysteries of the cosmos, saw only confusion in the flicker of reflected light. The curves of brightness did not match any model of tumbling stone or icy fragment. Instead, they danced irregularly, like riddles inscribed in shadow and brilliance. Then came the James Webb Space Telescope, humanity's newest sentinel stationed beyond the pull of Earth's gravity. Tuned to infrared, it was capable of seeing warmth itself, of finding signatures where light is too faint for the eye. Webb's gaze was sharp and penetrating, reaching into wavelengths untouched by Hubble. Yet even here, the data did not clarify. Heat signatures flickered inconsistently, as though the object's surface shifted properties from one moment to the next. The spectrographs returned results that contradicted themselves. Lines that should have revealed the chemistry of rock and ice instead blurring into confusion. From the surface of Earth, radio telescopes joined the effort. Arrays spread across continents listened for any whisper in the radio spectrum. These instruments had once caught the faint glow of the cosmic microwave background, the echo of the universe's birth. Now they strained to hear an interstellar traveler. For brief moments, faint echoes were recorded, signals that hinted at structure before dissolving back into static. Was it interference? Was it artifact? Or was it the universe whispering a language that human instruments had not yet learned to hear? Mars orbiters circling the red planet in quiet loops turned their instruments toward the approaching object as well. Cameras designed to study canyons and dust storms strained to catch a glimmer of the incoming path. Sensors meant to measure thin air and shifting sands were recalibrated to watch for traces that might ripple as the visitor passed. Mars, though silent and unmoved, became part of the experiment. Its orbit transformed into a vantage point for the pursuit of knowledge. Each of these instruments represented more than technology. They were mirrors reflecting not only the object they measured, but also the hunger behind the measurement. Humanity had built them not merely to map the stars, but to confront the unknown, to make sense of what resists comprehension. The act of turning them toward 3I Atlas was both scientific and philosophical, a declaration that silence itself would be interrogated, and yet the silence endured. The more powerful the telescope, the more intricate the data, the sharper the contradictions became. Light curves that should have settled into predictable patterns instead flickered like broken codes. Spectrographs that should have written clear chemical signatures returned lines that shifted like mirages. Data streams filled with numbers that bent logic, each new precision measurement only deepening the sense of impossibility. The more that was seen, the less was understood. This was the revelation and the frustration of science. Instruments extend the senses, but they do not extend certainty. They magnify mysteries even as they illuminate them. For every riddle answered, two more are revealed. In the case of 3I Atlas, the instruments did not open the door to clarity. They opened a doorway into deeper shadow, into a region where science itself struggled to stand. And yet, there was beauty in the struggle. The telescopes were not failures. They were testaments. Each mirror, each detector, each circuit was an expression of humanity's refusal to turn away from the unknown. The contradictions they recorded became part of the narrative, not as dead ends, but as markers pointing toward truths still hidden. The philosophy of tools became inseparable from the object itself. Telescopes are not only machines, they are questions made visible. They are the embodiment of a species that will not stop asking, even when the answers retreat further into darkness. The gaze of Hubble, the reach of Webb, the vigilance of Atlas, the listening ears of radio arrays, all are fragments of a single gesture. A gesture of longing, directed into the abyss. And so, the object continued on its path, unbothered, indifferent to the lenses and dishes turned toward it. Its silence was not broken. Its contradictions were not resolved. Instead, it left the scientists with data that refused to add up, and a reflection of themselves. Fragile beings standing on a small world, wielding fragile instruments, daring to measure the immeasurable. In that reflection lay the truest lesson. The universe does not promise clarity. It promises only mystery. The tools humanity builds are not keys but lanterns. They light the path just far enough to reveal that the darkness is deeper still. As 3I Atlas approached its rendezvous with Mars, the instruments continued to watch, their sensors alive with the anticipation of revelation. Light curves flickered like riddles, data streams echoed like broken codes, and in the silence, a profound truth emerged. That perhaps the most powerful instrument is not the telescope or the spectrograph, but the willingness to look into the unknown, knowing it may never look back. The approach of 3I Atlas was no longer a distant curiosity. It had become an event, a countdown written into the sky, and with each passing week, as the object drew closer to Mars, the mystery only deepened. Instead of answers, the data turned stranger, as if the object itself grew more elusive the nearer it came. Telescopes recorded fluctuations no one could explain. The light curve, once erratic but within margins of uncertainty, began to behave in ways that defied precedent. The object dimmed without warning, as though some unseen veil had passed across its surface. Hours later, it would surge with brightness, flaring with a reflection far too intense for its size. At times, the increase was so sharp that instruments recalibrated themselves, convinced of error. Yet the readings were real, confirmed across observatories scattered across the world. The flickers came and went without rhythm, like a heartbeat out of step with nature. Mars orbiters, watching from their stations around the red world, detected something equally unsettling. Subtle anomalies appeared in their navigational data. Tiny shifts in orbit, minute deviations in velocity, signals that should not have been there. The gravitational influence of 3I Atlas, by all calculations, was too small to produce measurable effects at such distances. And yet the numbers insisted otherwise. It was as though the visitor's presence extended further than mass could explain, bending the orbits of machines built to trace Mars with clockwork precision. The more the instruments studied, the more improbable the picture became. Some theorists suggested exotic energy interactions, perhaps reflections of solar radiation amplified by structures unknown. Others whispered about space-time itself bending, not in the grand arcs predicted by relativity, but in localized ripples, subtle distortions that reshaped the paths of light and gravity alike. A few dared to ask if the object carried energy of a kind not yet defined by human science, fields or forces that lay outside the catalog of known physics. The atmosphere of inquiry shifted into tension. In conferences and publications, papers appeared with titles laced with caution, yet filled with speculation. Terms like non-gravitational perturbations and spectral inconsistencies became code for a deeper truth, that the object behaved as if it followed laws not yet written. To speak of propulsion or intention or space-time warping was to risk dismissal. Yet in private, the questions could not be ignored. Could an object adrift from another star carry with it a physics alien to human thought? Could it be more than stone and ice? Something that bore the imprint of intelligence or the relic of forgotten cosmic processes? Mars became the silent stage for this growing drama. Its deserts turned beneath a thin sky, unmoved and indifferent, but in the minds of observers it had become the theater of revelation. The planet, long imagined as a cradle of questions about life, was now host to a different kind of anticipation. As the visitor drew nearer, it seemed as though the universe itself had arranged a meeting. The red world, scarred by ancient canyons and frozen rivers, would stand as the backdrop for an unveiling. The cinematic tension swelled. Humanity had seen mysteries before: dark matter, black holes, the expansion of the cosmos itself. But those were distant puzzles, abstractions calculated across billions of light years. This was different. This was here now, unfolding in real time as data streamed from telescopes and orbiters. The mystery was no longer theoretical. It was arriving. The object itself remained silent, indifferent to speculation. It offered no signal, no voice, only contradictions inscribed in light and gravity. Yet silence can be louder than words. The absence of clarity became a presence in itself, an unsettling reminder that the cosmos does not owe answers to the questions asked of it. Reflection settled across the scientific world like a shadow. What if the curtain about to rise did not reveal a solution, but a breaking of reality itself? What if the object demonstrated that the laws so carefully charted across centuries were only fragments of a greater truth, one that lay beyond comprehension? The possibility carried awe, but also dread. For discovery can inspire, but it can also shatter. As Three-Eye Atlas closed in on Mars, humanity waited, not with the stillness of resignation, but with the tension of anticipation, as though every telescope, every dish, every orbital eye were breaths held in unison. The visitor carried no sound, no declaration, only the weight of its contradictions. And in that silence, the universe seemed to prepare an unveiling, one that might confirm humanity's place in the cosmic story, or tear apart the very framework on which that story has been written. Mars turned. Patient, its deserts red and unblinking, the object approached, its riddles multiplying with every observation. And all of science stood on the edge of revelation, unsure if what awaited was knowledge or something far stranger, the breaking of the reality it thought it knew. The closer the gaze came, the less the answers remained. The instruments had strained. The theories had multiplied. The data had refused to settle. In the end, Three-Eye Atlas carried not clarity but contradiction, leaving humanity suspended in the tension between wonder and fear. Albert Einstein once said, "The most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible." For centuries, this belief had been vindicated. From the falling apple to the bending of starlight, the cosmos had unfolded to equations and models. But here, in the flicker of an interstellar traveler, comprehension itself began to collapse. The object moved through the solar system as if mocking the neatness of human logic, revealing that the map of the known world was not a finished work, but a draft full of omissions. What does it mean when reality resists explanation? Perhaps it is a reminder that knowledge is not conquest but dialogue. The universe speaks, but not always in ways that can be understood. Sometimes it answers in riddles, sometimes in silence, and sometimes in phenomena so alien that the very act of questioning is transformed. Three-Eye Atlas became such a voice, an interstellar riddle written not in words but in light, gravity, and paradox. As Mars turned beneath its pale skies, the stage was set for a revelation that never came in full. The planet remained unmoved, its deserts waiting in stillness, while the visitor swept past like a shadow across the edge of vision. Humanity was left to wonder if it had glimpsed a fragment of a deeper law of nature, or something more deliberate, something that brushed against the definition of intelligence itself. The emotional resonance of this moment was profound. In laboratories and observatories, scientists wrestled with models that bent beneath the strain of contradiction. Yet beyond the walls of science, ordinary people looked upward and felt the same unease. Was this a discovery or a warning? Was it a gift of knowledge from the cosmos or a reminder of how little is known? The inability to decide became part of the story. Awe and dread intertwined, a reflection of humanity's fragile place in the immensity of the unknown. If the object left no trace on Mars, then its legacy would be in memory alone. A visitor whose greatest mark was to leave none at all. If it altered the thin atmosphere or deposited fragments into the Martian soil, then future explorers might uncover its story in whispers of chemistry and dust. Either way, its passing had already altered humanity. It had shaken certainty. It had shown that the universe is not bound to be comprehensible, that it may hold truths forever beyond reach. Perhaps that is the point. The greatest mysteries may not exist to be solved. They may exist to be lived, to serve as reminders of fragility, humility, and perspective. They remind a species bound to one small planet that the cosmos is not a riddle to be conquered, but a vast and restless expanse in which questions outweigh answers. And so, the image remains. Mars, silent under its pale skies, its canyons cut deep, its deserts stretching outward in mute testimony. Above it, Three-Eye Atlas passes by, a traveler from another star carrying contradictions that no telescope can resolve. For a brief moment, it writes itself across the heavens like a question written in fire, suspended between knowledge and mystery. Then it recedes, vanishing into the dark from which it came. The silence that follows is not emptiness. It is reflection. Humanity stands beneath the stars, reminded not of certainty, but of wonder. For in the end, the universe does not exist to explain itself. It exists to astonish.